Welcome to Hope Academy. My name is Mr. O, and today I'm going to be going over the Math 2 test, Math Subject Test 2, specifically numbers 20 to 23. This is an exam provided on the CollegeBoard website, and I provide the link below. But that being stated, usually how I do these questions is that first I do the question real quick and answer, and then afterwards I explain to you how I was able to get to the answer so quickly. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So for number 20, what's the measure? Okay. Just getting an idea. 2, 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, and 6, 5. So it's going to be something like that. Okay. 2, 1, 5, 3, 5. Okay. Interesting. So they want the larger angle. Okay. Well, for now, I'm going to do that. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, okay. Wait. Actually. Okay, so my final answer for this question is going to be C. And so when I'm doing this type of question, and I'm going to go ahead and explain. So they ask me that there's a parallelogram that does exist. And so the parallelogram sort of looks like with the points of 2, 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, and 6, 5. And so what I did was I sort of sketched it real quick at first. I didn't need to draw it so specifically or perfectly because you do not have the time to do that. And so I just sort of sketched 1, 2, 1. I sort of got ideas 2, 1 somewhere around here. Understood that 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 1 is going to be here. Now I understood that 3, 5, and 6, 5 was sort of going to be up here. Okay. And I understood that that's my sort of my parallelogram. I just needed a visual cue. You don't need to write this whole thing out. Just draw a part of it and understand that that's what you need. And the question's asking me to find the largest angle. And this is how I went about doing so. So first thing first, I actually did was I took the smaller angle and looked for the smaller angle first, just because I needed to find the angle of one of these corners just to sort of help me use the parallelogram rule in the end toward to make it happen. And so what I made a mistake was that I first realized, okay, well, this is distance of 1 and 4, because if I'm looking at point distances, I understood that. I ended up punching tangent 4 in the beginning, but realizing that that is the mistake. Actually, what I'm supposed to do is tangent of theta is going to equal to 4 over 1, because SOHCAHTOA, and I'm going to take the side measurements. And thus, there is a rule that does exist where if I have tangent theta equals to 4 over 1, and I want to find the value of this, I could do the inverse tangent of my 4 over 1 to find this angle measurement. Another thing I must also side note is that when you are doing this to calculator functionalities, make sure if we are looking for degrees, which is the case, that my calculator is in the degree format. If it is not, I need to make sure to push mode and scroll down to where it says degree, which is the second or fourth line. Fourth line, I'm going to push the arrow key and I could change according to that. But because it is already in degree mode, I was good and I left it alone. Okay? And so after I did tangent 4, and I'm going to type it again. So inverse tangent or arctangent of 4. What's going to happen actually is that if I punch it in normally like this, it's going to give me a really combobulated, crazy answer. So what I actually need to do is push the green button, then push enter to get a clean value. And what this tells me is that this corner piece right here of the parallelogram is going to be something like 75.96, like 4, or 38, but I'll just write 4. Okay, and so I know that my smaller angle in this parallelogram is going to be 75.964. But there's a property that does exist, where if it is a parallelogram, the larger angle plus the smaller angle of a parallelogram will always add up to 180. That's why I did 180 minus that 75.964 to finally get to the answer of 104. And thus how, for number 20, I was able to get to the answer C. And that concludes my explanation for number 20. And just to continue on to the next question, and I'm going to go ahead and flip across. So flipping to the next page, for number 21, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So for some real values, the first 3 terms, okay. That's a 2t, okay. Let's see, 0, no, 1, 4, no. This is arithmetic, okay. 2, this is 4, that's 10, that's 9, that's 12, 12, 14, 5, 9, 10, 14. Okay, so for number 21, my final answer is E. And now I'm going to explain to you how I was able to get to this answer. For number 21, there's a few things that went through my mind. So the first thing I didn't notice was that they mentioned that this was going to be an arithmetic sequence-based question, and they provided me these weird, like sort of variable-based values, and they asked me for the fourth term. So be careful whenever you're reading these questions. For the most part, people actually get this type of question wrong because they don't read the question carefully and rush over to sort of write down what they think the answer would be. So when I was doing this question, I noted that my first term was going to be 2t, so first term. And these are not fraction values, they're just term placements. So 5t minus 1 was going to be my second, and 6t plus 2 was going to be my third. Okay, so when I am doing this sort of value by value sort of evaluation sort of thing, I need to be careful about how this goes about because it mentions it's an arithmetic a sequence sort of question. So for example, if I plug in 0 into here, this will be 2 times 0, which is 0. If I plug in 0 into here, it will be -1, and then this will be 2. And there's no arithmetic-based sequence that works with this because this goes by a gap of -1 and this suddenly goes +3, which is not a sequence. A sequence needs to be consistently the same number added because it's arithmetic. It has to be the same number added again and again and again. And thus why I knew this was not going to work. That when t equals to 0, this was not going to work. So let's say I'm going to try t equals to 1. And the reason why I chose these values, I do want to side note. Why I chose such low values is because I noticed that my fourth term will have to be a low value itself. And so I went and continued doing so. I plugged in 1, so I did 2, and I sort of mental math this. This will be 4. And I plug in 1 into here, 6 plus 2 is going to be 8. And if you notice, this is going to be +2 and +4, which is not an arithmetic sequence. I could see some people choosing this as a possible viable option, and be aware that this actually looks more like a geometric sequence, not an arithmetic sequence. So be careful about that. It does have a pattern, but not in the addition or subtraction format. So I continue on to t equals to 2. And I plugged in 2 times 2, which is going to be 4. I plug in 2 again. 5 times 2 is going to be 10, minus 1, which is going to be 9. And 6 times 2 is going to be 12 plus 2, which is going to be 14. And if I look right here, plus 5 and plus 5, this is my thing I need. And this is going to be my first, second, third term, which means that I need to take that 14 to get the fourth term, plus 5 again, to equal to 19. And that's how I got my final answer to be E like this. And that concludes my explanation for number 21. So make sure you understand that for this type of question, it's to be aware of arithmetic sequence, and I do want to write it just in case it will help you. And also, it's also useful to also know geometric sequence because there is a difference between these two. Because arithmetic means that I add or subtract values. Geometric means I either multiply or divide values consistently the same value. And that's how I was able to do this question for number 21. And to continue on to for number 22, the diameter and height. Ooh, interesting. Okay. So this would be x divided by 2. Okay. If the volume of the cylinder's tube was the height. Okay. So I actually need a little bit of space for this. So I'm going to write on the scratch paper. So height's going to be, let me make sure, 8, oh, wait, actually no, it's going to be 8 over pi cubic root. Okay, so, whoop, I rushed a little bit there, but I caught myself. 8 over pi to the 1/3. I got this value, 1.36. So for number 22, my final answer is going to be A. And now I'm going to explain to you how I was able to get to this answer. And so going to get a new spreadsheet just to sort of explain a few things going on here. So for number 22, they mentioned that this is going to be a right cylinder based question. And so for number 22, what I did was I sort of sketched the cylinder and got the idea to start. And it says right here that the diameter and height are equal to each other. So diameter equals to height. I have to be careful because when I say height equals to x, this whole thing is going to also be x. Okay, my diameter is going to equal to x. But I have to be careful because there is a concept, because this is a volume-based question, and they also mentioned my volume equals to 2. And the volume of a cylinder actually going to be 4 equals to pi r squared h. That is a formula that I recommend memorizing. It's actually provided to you on the front page of the Math 2C exam. But I do recommend memorizing equations like this just because it makes life easier and you could solve the question faster so you could focus on the harder questions. And if you notice, my diameter is x, but this is in the format of radius. And if you remember radius, or if you need review, radius is going to equal to my diameter divided by 2 because it's half the length of the diameter. And thus, because my diameter is x, that means my radius for this question, radius, is actually going to equal to x over 2. And I do want to side note that because I know that some people might have jumped to a conclusion and plugged x rather than knowing that it's going to be x over 2. Afterwards, what I did was that I set up the equation afterwards because my volume equals to 2. I understood it was going to be pi. My radius, as I said, was x over 2 squared times height, which is actually also going to be 2. And you have to also make sure when you distribute the exponent right here, it goes to both the numerator and the denominator, or the top and bottom part of this fraction. So 2 equals to pi x squared over 4 times 2, and then ends up going to be 2 equals to is going to equal to x squared over 2 pi. Okay, let me make sure that I didn't mess up anywhere. Pi r squared. Whoops, this is not going to be 2 actually. Sorry about that. It's going to be x, and so that's a little mistake I made. And just make sure you know that my height is also x, and so I need to keep consistent to that. It's actually going to be x cubed. Okay. So I make sure that I follow that. Okay, so afterwards, after I do that type of question, or after I fix that, what happens is that I'm going to solve for x. And so I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. And it's going to be 8 equals to x cubed pi. And then divided by pi, and moving up here. And it's going to be 8 over pi equals to x cubed. And then now I have to do a cubic root, like this. So x is going to be cubic root of 8 over pi. Okay? And that sort of shows how I go about, getting to the value. But that being stated, if you notice, the answer choices that I have are not going to be in that format. It's going to be an actual constant value. And thus, why on the calculator, I need to know how to go about doing that or showing that value. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this on specifically my TI-89. So on the TI-89, and I'm going to bring it up. So because it's cubic root of 8 over pi, the first thing I'm going to do is exactly type that down. 8 divided by pi. And pi is going to be right over here in blue. Okay, so I push second, the power, the root thing, or this is going to be not root, my power value. And this is how I could get to the pi value. Afterwards, I'm going to push this little caret thing, or the little thing that spikes upward, because that indicates that I want an exponential value. And the concept is that for roots, like square root, cube root, and whatever not, they are going to be represented in a power format by a fraction. And thus, because this is going to be a root 3 right here, and as I show you right here, what I'm going to do is put it 1 divided by 3, because that means that it's a cubic root, or aka right here was represented. And I'm going to push the green button so that I could get a decimal value out, and I'm going to be at 1.365. That's what x equals to, 1.36, like 5 or 6 sort of thing. And if I look at the question right here, 22, they're all rounded off based on the second decimal value. And thus why my final answer for number 22 is going to be A. And that's how I go about doing this sort of questions. So thank you so much for watching this video. I will continue on to the next questions, number 23 to 25 next time. So feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel or like our Facebook page so that we can continue to make content like this. I hope you have a wonderful day.